So in this video, I'm going to cover the ownership experience of having the Toledano and Chan B1 since it came out in 2024. You may be looking to get the new iteration that's coming out in a couple of days, or you may be looking to buy one secondhand and you want to know some of the practicalities of owning it before you hit the buy button. So the first part is a positive, is the visual design. The visual design is a Marmite watch. People love it or they hate it, and they will happily tell you their opinion unprompted. So it's going to get attention despite the fact that it's steel and has a lot of matte and brushed surfaces. It doesn't reflect a lot of light. It shouldn't be blingy, and it isn't a blingy watch. But because of the unique shape, people will talk to you about it. People in Starbucks, civilians, and people who are watch people at watch shows or in watch clubs. They've never seen one, or they've seen it only in pictures, and they want to take a look and they want to tell you their thoughts and views on the thing. So I view that as a big positive. I like having a conversation piece, statement pieces in terms of jewelry or something you're going to wear. I think is a great tool in a certain sense if you think about it. So I like that. I like the distinctive look of it. I like the background. There's a story to it in terms of the people who designed it and their inspiration with the architecture. I think that's great. It's a good thing to talk about. It's awesome. But some people look at it and they say it's nerdy, or it looks like a Cybertruck, or some people think it's very elegant and very unique. It's going to be one or the other. The other issue, which is a positive and a negative, is the elements that went into the case design related to the finishing are going to be a potential issue for you that you need to know about. So there's a lot of very precise edges and angles and surfaces on the watch if you're attentive and you pay attention to these sorts of things. A lot of the surfaces are either brushed with hard edges or they are bead blasted. So there's bead blasting on the side and the back of the case. There's bead blasting on here, as you can see. There's bead blasting on the side of the case here and on the bracelet. Okay, so bead blasting looks like it's tough. It is the most delicate and sensitive of the finishes you're going to have on a watch, unless you maybe paint it, or maybe some sort of coatings, maybe even more scratch resistant, I don't know, or scratch showable. But bead blasting is very sensitive. If you get a slight scuff or scratch, it's going to show. It's going to be very shiny metal underneath it, and it's going to be very obvious, and you're going to see it. Additionally, the hard edges on the bracelet are crisp, and crisp edges catch dings. So you open and close doors, you bang it against something, it's going to make a ding on that side. It's going to catch the light, especially because everything is so matte, and you're not going to be able to not see it. Now, I'm pretty OCD. I'm very careful with my things that I buy and I own, and it's not really marked up. It's pretty much near mint. Just got one little issue on it, which I'll show you later, and I'm very careful. But it's hard to be that careful generally with things. Most people are not, and so it's going to collect some dings, and that might bother you. The other issue, however, I would say with that, I have seen some overall worn down and kind of more patinaed versions on Chrono 24. Once you've got a number of scratches and a number of kind of characterful indentations along the surface, I think it would actually be very elegant and very attractive with a generalized kind of patina on it. It's just that in-between stage when you got one big ding or one big scratch on the side, definitely could very much annoy you depending on your personality type. Related to the design as well is the bracelet. The bracelet's going to be the issue you're going to deal with the most. So the bracelet is sort of stiff. As you can see from this view, it doesn't really compress. It's not super silky in terms of, if you compare it to like a Jubilee Datejust or something bracelet, those are very silky and very smooth no matter what you do with it. This has sharp edges on the inside here, and when you go to put the watch on, if you have hairy wrists like me, it's going to catch some hairs, and that's not super fun. It's not pulling my hairs off or anything. It's not that bad, but it does catch some hairs, and it's annoying when you put it on. Now the good part about it, and I'll get the clasp open here. The good part about the inside is once you've got the watch on, if you see there's a little radii on the edges of the links. So that radii is smooth, and so once you have it on the wrist and it's just kind of rolling around, it's pretty nice. It's not going to catch your hairs. Occasionally it will if it moves back and forward and one of those sharp edges kind of on the pin or something, that will catch an edge, and it does happen. So if you're looking for an invisible watch wearing experience, it's not going to be that. But all things considered, it's not that bad. But that is definitely an issue you want to be aware of. Other issues with the bracelet is the way the clasp is set up. This is the original clasp design where there's no, the deployant doesn't have little buttons on the edges. So I think this is the way to go. This fits the design language perfectly. It's seamless. This is the way it should be. That's, my view on that. Okay, it's a little tough. You have it's got to fight a little bit to get the thing off. That will wear down a little bit over time, and it can be retightened very easily with this thing. But, some people didn't like that. I guess they complained, so they had it changed. I don't like the new change. I think this is fine, but some people wouldn't like it. That's to be aware of. Other issues with the bracelet is with the size of the bracelet. So on paper, this is a very small watch. Not very small. It's fairly small, in the 30s in terms of the specifications. It wears a lot larger because of the width of the bracelet. I've got 6. I don't want to put it on with my bracelet here, but it just wears much larger than you think it is. I have a 6.5-inch wrist. It wears large because of that. It's not that thick, but it just looks thicker than you think it is. I think it looks a little too big personally on my wrist. I think it would be ideal for a 7-inch wrist person, or a little larger. I think it would be great. I wish they'd made it a little smaller. But if you are 7 inches, that's all you got in terms of the links. So these are the only 2 links that came with it. It's like maybe a little over a centimeter or something. So you might have to get more links if you have larger hands than that. That's going to be a potential issue for you. Resizing it is also kind of annoying. So basically, it has these screws on the back. You unscrew these, and it will loosen, and you can loosen the pin. It'll pull off. To loosen those, though, you should put some tape on your tool so you don't ding the sides, and put some tape on the surface here. But then you can kind of put your tool in between, and you can unscrew it like that. That's how you kind of do it, and you got to do it on both sides. And then you can slowly work them both out at the same time, and you can slowly work it out, and then you pull out the pins you don't need, and then you got to put it back on. The problem with putting it back on is, if we can find it, again, you can tell I'm real fussy about stuff. So you see right here, this is there's no chamfer or broken edges on the area around the pins, and the pins aren't chamfered either, which would be really, again, that'd be really, it's a real pain in the butt to machine that and maintain the finish. So I do get it, but whatever. If it had some chamfer, it'd be a lot easier to get it in there without scratching the edge. There's nothing to catch on. Normally, you put tape on it. If it's a normal screw, you put tape on it, and that protects the finish. That doesn't work here because of how tight the tolerance is on the pins. It just wouldn't simply go in. So I'm sure they had some interesting way to hold it when they initially put it in there, but I don't have access to that work holding setup, so I can't do that. So that's a little bit of an annoying part about it. Other issues that are going to come up is the movement is a stock movement. Okay, it's a reliable movement. It's cheap-ish, to service. Simple. You could replace the movement with another one and not feel bad about it, and it'd be no big deal. I'm glad it at least is a mechanical and not a quartz. I'm glad it's not a quartz watch. My preference would have been for them to make a larger crown, easier to wind, and made it a thinner manual movement so it could be a little thinner. That would have been my personal preference if I had my druthers, but hey, I can't have everything you want in life, right? But at least it's not quartz, so that's good, and it's cheap to service. It's hard to read the time. Okay, whatever. It's not a chronograph. Use your phone. So if you need that much precision, that's not what this watch is supposed to be. But yeah, it's a little weird to read the thing. You'll get used to it, but it's not going to be perfectly accurate. That's another negative. All right, so the last part we'll deal with here is going to be the pricing issue, the cost. This costs $4,000 new. The new one's close to $6,000. That's a lot of money. And I've seen many comments on Reddit and YouTube videos saying, hey, I can get this, I can get this, I can get an Omega with a hairspring, well, whatever the fuck. Okay, buy an Omega. If your concern is performance of the movement or water resistance or the name brand, then you definitely should get that. I'm not going to convince you otherwise. Get that. This is for a watch when you've got that stuff. So if you've got, I've got a bunch of watches. I've got tons of watches. This is different than anything else I have. It's something different. There's nothing else like it that you can get. All right, so that's the reality of it. Now, the other part about it is a Marmite watch. There's only a certain number of people who are going to want this thing. So when you have a lower amount of people who want to purchase something, things, because of the economies of scale of manufacturing, they're going to be more expensive per object when you're going to make less of them. Okay, there's a number of design decisions. If you think about the machining and the work hold setup and the order of operations of the finishing and the precision on some of the tolerances on some of the parts and the details they put on here, that's an opportunity lost by the manufacturer that they could have spent on a super clone. They could have spent they got a Swiss mill that they could have been making a homage watch, and they could make 1,000 of homage watches, and that'd be more efficient for them. So if you're going to get them to take machine time away and to make custom order of operations, prototype something, and get all these little design elements that are in here in terms of the angles and the finish, that's expensive. To get them to lose that opportunity cost, they could be making aerospace parts or something like that. So they could have simplified the design. Like they could have removed a couple of the edges, changed some of the brushing, and they would have had 90% of the look of the watch, and it would have been, $1,000 cheaper or something like that. They could have done that. They had a very specific design intent. They obviously, with the way they put the angles in, the decisions on the shapes, they put a lot into the prototyping, and it had a very specific vision for how they wanted things to go together. And so when you don't compromise on those things as much as you should, you're going to have to pay extra to get the thing to be made. Just given the machine setup and all that kind of crap, I mean, I don't think they're making any money on these things personally. Plus, you have to consider the branding and all the marketing type stuff that they have to do and travel and stuff. I'm not trying to sound like a sycophant or something, but I just don't see them making that much money with this thing. Okay, the other part of the money element of it is it's a limited production run. So as long as they keep the production run low and they limit the quantity of something, the price is going to be higher and it's going to be maintained for higher. There's plenty of companies that have something that's not that attractive. They charge a big price, not enough people want to buy it, and so the price drops like a rock. Or they make something simpler but interesting and they charge it very low. And even though you pay $500 for it, when you go to sell it, you can barely sell it and get $200 for the thing. No one's interested because they can just buy a new one for only a couple $100 more. So it's sort of there's a part of it which is not an investment in terms of like a good investment for money, because watches are not really a good investment for money. You should buy stocks. But in terms of I want to buy something, it's going to be distinct. There's not going to be, you're never going to see another one in real life unless you're at an event for the watch or something. You're not going to see one in real life. It's a conversation piece. There's very few of them, and you can wear it for a couple of years, and I want to sell it and pass that experience on to the next person, and with fees and everything, I'll get all my money back, or I'll make money, depending on how they continue with the brand. And if they continue with the limited releases, I mean, you're going to make a little bit of money on it, and that's worth something. For some people, that's worth something. All right, so I hope that is enlightening for you. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them down in the comments.